Hi, everyone. So today we're going to be talking to you about time and task management. My name is Martin Echeverria. I'll be going through the introduction section. We flip to the next slide. And then Scott's going to be going through time management. Kristen will be going through task management. And Harley will be finishing out with a closing and activity. So before we get started, just wanted to do a quick icebreaker. So we thought, what's one fun thing or one silver lining about this awful COVID-19 situation that that you've been able to take advantage of? And for me, it's been getting back into road biking. It's something that I did for many years, and I kind of stopped doing it for a bunch of different reasons. And now I just have a lot of free time on my hand, and it's something that you can do without having to interact with other people. I'll pass it over to you, Scott.
Cool, thanks, Martin. That's awesome. Glad you're doing that. So yeah, I'm really truthfully grateful for this time. It's been really kind of a nice change of pace. Going to be positive here. So instead of getting on the train every morning and going to work, I get up early and go for long walks, and I call home and talk to my family on the phone. So it's been a nice way to get some exercise and also have more family time than I otherwise probably would have had. So really kind of enjoyed that, actually. Kristen?
Sounds great, Scott. Yeah, so I'm in Costa Rica. I'm waiting for my daughter to deliver a baby in 3 weeks. So what I've learned or put on my COVID-19 while I'm quarantined is I'm trying to learn Spanish. Harley?
Yeah, that's awesome. I can wrap it up. So I recently got a puppy. She will sadly not be featured on the call because she's sleeping. But I'm very grateful for the time I've had to bond with her and attempt training, but it's only going so well. So
awesome. Well, glad everyone's been able to do at least something fun or take advantage of this time while we have it. So moving on to the next slide. So for our session today, we're really going to talk through what time and task management are and why they are so important. We'll go through some tools and strategies that will help you somewhat manage your time more effectively. And then also look at like what sort of processes you can use to manage your tasks. Finally, we'll look through some tools that will help you track and manage your tasks more effectively. All right, so what's the difference between time management and task management? And why are these concepts important? I know this is not always easy to understand, so we'll kind of break it down. Time management is the process of applying strategies, tools, and techniques to effectively use your time and meet your goals. Task management is the way you identify, record, and prioritize your tasks that you have. So when you effectively manage your time, you can do more in less amount of time. You accomplish things with less effort, and you can learn and make better decisions. I think in addition to that, it also reduces your stress. I know when I kind of map out what I'm going to do for my day, it helps me really prioritize, okay, I need to do X, Y, Z things. So let's focus on those rather than trying to multitask and trying to do too many things at once. And that gives me some more time to enjoy some of the personal activities that I like to do. In terms of task management, when you're a good task manager, you can really prioritize your tasks according to when they're due and how important they are. And really kind of identify like what are those necessary steps to be able to complete that task, and then ideally be able to complete it on time. So yep, that's time management and task management.
Awesome,
right,
thanks,
so I'll
Martin.
pass it over to Scott.
Really cool, thank you. So next we'll talk through time management a bit more specifically. So in this section, we'll cover a few different questions. So as this slide here shows, we want to think about how we're managing our time. Slide shows at work or at school. These are obviously unique times. So at work and at school might be really in your living room or at home or wherever else it might be. So next we'll talk about tools, techniques, strategies you can use to manage your time effectively. And then lastly, we'd like to dig into what challenges you face when you're managing your time. Let's go to the next slide, Arlene. Cool. Awesome. So just digging in a bit, what strategies or tools will help you to manage your time? So there's 2 key strategies that we want to highlight today to help to manage time effectively. So as the slide shows, setting priorities and focusing on one task at a time. So like Martin mentioned, it really helps to have your clearly defined list of priorities before the day or the session begins. That way you kind of know where you're headed to. And so that can really help to make sure you stay on task, but also have a very clear idea of what you're headed towards and not be stressed out. And also, I like to say, so number 2 here is focusing on one task at a time. I like to say you can only do one thing at a time, or think about one thing at a time. And so if you're trying to juggle 2 things at once, you're really going to do nothing, right? And so it's better to be focused on one thing at a time and really knock it out. Cool. So next we'll talk about, sorry, just go back one. There you go. Next we'll talk about 2 key tools that can help to manage your time. So one is an activity log, and next is a prioritized to-do list. So these might seem kind of self-explanatory. Activity log is basically saying these are all the things that are really important to me. And then the second one, prioritized to-do list, is saying, okay, all of those things from my number 1 list, number 1 log, let's go through and rank them, what's most important and least important, and then check through it in order, right? So it's a good way to keep track of what really matters. Next slide. Cool. So here's one good way to think about it. So this is what you might call a matrix, and it's a kind of a framework for thinking about what's most important and what's most urgent. So there's 4 quadrants here. So in the top left, we see things that are important and urgent, and then top right is things that are important but not urgent, and then bottom left, not important but still urgent, and then bottom right is important and not urgent. So what does this mean? Maybe the next slide will show us an example. Keep on rolling. Cool. So just kind of quickly went through that because I think this slide's a way better way to view those things. So top left, things that are important and urgent. So these are basically things that are both significant, important. They must be done. If you don't do it, there'll be negative consequences. And also it's fact-based, fact-driven. So they're activities that are really high importance to you, require high attention, and also, like I said before, if you don't do it, there'll be consequences. So top right would be things that are important, but not really urgent. So they still need to be done, but not right away. So if you're ranking things in order of top to bottom, they might not be at the very top of the list because it's not essential that you do it right away. Bottom left are things that are still urgent, but not as important. So they require immediate attention. But they don't have lasting consequences if you mess up or don't do them. And then bottom right are areas that are really just kind of time wasters, right? So they're not important and not urgent. But if we're being honest, sometimes they're necessary just to give yourself a little bit of a space, some breathing room. So there's 4 main kind of criteria here, or different areas where all activities will fall into. And that's what I've got for time management.
All right, thanks, Scott. So moving on to task management. As was mentioned earlier, task management is really the way you identify, prioritize, and manage tasks. So if you want to go to the next, oh, there we go. Okay, so here's the actual process. So if you look at step 1, you identify your task. And I like to use what I use as an acronym KISS, so keep it simple, stupid. So I really limit and identify just 3 tasks per day. And then I prioritize those 3 tasks for the day. And then finally, I manage each task. And what's important here is that you monitor the progress through completion. So go to the next slide, please. So some task management tools, there are various tools that are either paper-based or electronic tools. I prefer the paper-based tools. Again, I'm very simple. I literally take my little index card, I write my 3 priorities, and I set that next to my computer. There are planners that have monthly, weekly, or daily calendars. If you have a calendar just pinned up next to your bed, you can write your any appointments or interviews. In today's world, there's many electronic tools, and here are some examples. I know at Accenture, we use Microsoft Outlook for emails, and this tool is really effective. I found that we can flag each task and you can give it a deadline. You can also assign and categorize by color. For example, if it's from a boss, you color code it in a different color so you know to respond to those immediately. With respect to my running, I like to use some electronic tools. I log my miles under Under Armour, Map My Run. So what's important on the tools is that you really know what works best for you. It'll help you keep on task. So next slide, please. So some reminders and just best practices. When you receive a task from your supervisor, it's really a good practice to ask him or her, how long should this task take? And that way you'll know generally how long it will take, and then you can build it into your day-to-day schedule. It's also important after you've completed your task to really do a quality review. So for example, you've worked on your resume all day and you're done with the task. You cross it off your list. But what if, you didn't use spell check and there's a lot of mistakes? So all that work that you've done, it's really not an effective way to use your time. So it's really important to do quality review. Next slide, or last point, sorry. So as you manage your tasks, you have to make sure that you are meeting your deadlines. So it's important, again, to manage the deadlines. And we talked about various tools that you can use, whether it's your phone calendar, whether it's a hard calendar next to your bed. Another way to make sure you're meeting your deadlines is to maybe ask a friend to hold you accountable so that you're meeting those deadlines. I know, for example, when I have outside counsel do some trademark work for Accenture, I have the deadline in my calendar, but I also ask them to send me a gentle reminder a week before the deadline. Next slide, please. So communication to your supervisor of both your progress as well as any red flags that might come up is really important. So talk to your supervisor about how he or she would like you to communicate your progress. Would she like it in an email? Would she like it in just a quick meeting set up? Is a text enough? But it's important to understand how your supervisor wants you to convey, communicate that information to her. And also, it's always a best practice to keep your supervisor informed of any problems that occur. And the last bullet, this is important. You're not going to hide any critical issues, but you're going to identify those issues and also provide any solutions. If you think there's a problem, it's better to go to your supervisor and say, well, I've got this problem. They can't deliver the materials on time, but I have a solution so that we can still meet our deadline. So having a solution to give to your supervisor is also very helpful. Next slide, please. So I'm going to pass it over to Harley to talk about some of the things we've mentioned and what you've learned.
Awesome. Thanks, Kristen. I know always setting aside time for that final review is really helpful because it always blows my mind, the things that you'll miss, even in like an email. To be like, oh, wow, reading that back or a text, like that's not the right use of your. Anyway, so what are some things that we've learned from this session? And then afterward, we'll do the activity. So we kind of flip things a little bit just due to the virtual nature of this session. I'm hoping that you guys are watching this and maybe you're in a small group or have like a roommate or someone else that you're able to do the activity with or work with and watch this together, just to get a little bit of that sense of camaraderie. So especially with us all being at home and all of our spheres combining, managing your time effectively is a really critical skill, and something that can be honed in on during this time. But considering the importance and urgency of a task can help you manage your time well. So think about that matrix Scott spoke to, and then also setting the priority and focusing on one task at a time. I think even Kristen's keep it simple, stupid is a really good way to remember that. And then remembering as you're going through task and managing your time allocated to each of those tasks that you're identifying, recording, then prioritizing and organizing, and then you're managing it and making sure to, raise up any risk you see to a supervisor or anyone else that you need to. So to get this done, so you're not just managing everything in your head, there's a lot of tools. I know I'm like a compulsive list maker, so I love paper-based tools. But we're actually going to go into an activity that'll be researching an electronic tool to see if that is something that works for you guys. So here's one example. This would have been a group activity that we did. So feel free to work on it by yourself or, with anyone that you're able to in this time. So we want you to imagine and kind of pick the role maybe that most closely aligns to the position you're looking to get. So there's retail associate, restaurant waiter, shipping or receiving clerk, and then home health aide. Also feel free to think of your own if you think that's helpful, if none of these really fit. So what we want you to do with this activity, read through each of these, maybe pause the video so you can write them down, and then you'll just put them onto the matrix that Scott talked about. So then you can see, the importance and urgency which each of these things, which I'm hoping you pick a role that is something you're familiar with, so you can kind of deem what's urgent and important. So we won't go through each of these because trust that you guys can figure it out and refer back to earlier in the video for any tips. So kind of just give it a minute there. So if you guys need to pause anything. And then another activity we can do, this would be something you do more so on your own, is look into those electronic time and task management tools we discussed. I know Outlook has some, like I do the flagging of my emails all the time. I think that might not seem like really time or task management, but totally is. Great reminder to set for yourself. Yeah, in a group of 3 or 4 or by yourself, choose an electronic tool used for time or task management. If you have access to a computer, you can look that up pretty easily, or on your phone, lots of apps. And then you'll see activity handout, so that'll be emailed along with this video to kind of think about these key questions. Once you're done, try and do a short presentation or pitch of that tool and tell us why it's important. You can record yourself just like we're doing. Hopefully you picked up things to do and not do from seeing us on video. And record the pitch. I'm sure we would all love to watch it and give you feedback or learn about a new app or way we could be managing our time and task in just general life. But yeah, that's all we got. Thank you guys. We hope you're all staying, happy, healthy, safe, having fun. And yeah, it's good to see everyone.
Yeah, see everybody. I echo that. Stay safe, have fun. Hopefully we'll see you very soon.
Everyone. Wash your hands, be safe. Bye-bye. See you soon.